Everybody, no sound. Margaret is saying no sound. Okay, can see you. Okay, I'm working on it, guys. No sound, no sound, no sound. All right. We're working on it. Can I comment? Oh, Janet said that she got it. Okay, so you can hear me now? Okay, that's good. I'm really glad. All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to start over. I don't know what happened, but I appreciate you letting me know that you couldn't hear me. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did to fix it, but apparently I was able to fix it. All right, Ron. Hi, Ron. Thank you for coming with us again. That's great. I'm glad everybody can hear me now. That's good. All right. I'm starting to get a little worried. Okay, so I'm just going to start over. We are in week 2 of Let's Discuss with Findmypast. So today's session is Let's Discuss North American Records. Definitely my passion, and certainly something that I'm very engaged with. Fantastic. I'm glad everybody can hear me. That's good. So let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Jen Baldwin. I am the Data Acquisition Manager for North America for Findmypast. Which really just means that I have one of the coolest jobs in the world. I get to work with archives and libraries and genealogy societies kind of all over North America, primarily Canada and the United States, primarily the Eastern Seaboard, and help them digitize their records and find routes for them to do that, to put their records online, whether it's on Findmypast or pointing them in the direction that works best for them. So my real key area with Findmypast is the North American record collection. So we're going to talk about that a lot today. But let me back up a step and just kind of give you an idea. If you're new to the Let's Discuss series, this is only our second week of doing this, so just about everybody's new to this. But we're excited to have you with us. We're excited to be contributing to the community and discussion and engaging. This is a difficult time in our history and our shared history. So we're looking for lots of comments, lots of discussion. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Let us know about different ideas that you might want to talk about. Definitely contribute your comments. Anything that you want to say, right? If you have questions, ask questions. I will interrupt everything that I've prepared to talk about to answer questions. I would much rather talk to you guys than just read off my list of bullet points over here to cover. So if you have comments or anything, please do put them in the chat. All right, so that's why we're doing Let's Discuss. We'd really love to continue to do this after the lockdown and kind of things get back to normal, but we'll see what happens, right? Maybe it's not the right format in 4 weeks. We don't know. Nobody knows. So I hope everybody had a good week. I hope you're all healthy and safe. I hope that everybody that you love is healthy and safe. I know there's a lot going on right now in all of our worlds, so let's just take an hour and relax and learn from each other and see what we can benefit, right? And how we can benefit from each other. That's what this is all about. All right, so we are in the North American time frame for a reason. Most of our strategy, most of our work is actually across the Atlantic, of course, in the British Isles as a company. But we do have a small team focused on North America, and I'm quite privileged to be a part of that team. We really focus on trying to help people cross the pond and get into their British Isles research. That's really one of our primary objectives. But we also are working in North America to fill some gaps in terms of record coverage, right? There's plenty of genealogical organizations out there that have been doing digital records in North America for a long time. And we haven't, right? We haven't been here as long as others. But we're incredibly excited about the projects that we have going. That's kind of just an intro a little bit. So David, thank you for being here with us. I'm using a couple devices as always to monitor you guys and make sure everybody's happy. Deborah, thank you for watching. Rosemary, it's good to have you all. Donna and Louise and Carla. Looks like a pretty good group today. Sharon's with us. That's fantastic. So thank you all very much for coming and being a part of our conversation today. All right, so let's talk about Findmypast, right? We're a company that has a long history in the British Isles. We've been around for a long time, so the vast majority of our records are British Isles in scope. And it's an incredible collection, actually. Every day I learn about some new record set or some new research opportunity that I didn't know about. My specialty is in North America research. So I'm learning alongside, right, with everybody else about the British Isles and all of the various opportunities in research. So my plan today is to encourage questions. I'll say that a lot. So if you have anything that comes to mind, or if you want to talk about a particular record set or a particular type of records, throw that out. But I will share with you some of my favorite record sets from the North American side of our project. Deborah from Surrey, thank you so much for joining. It's 9 o'clock at night, I think, in the British Isles right now, if I remember correctly from checking my time zone converter earlier today. So thank you so much for being with us in Surrey today. That's awesome. I'm going to talk about a few of my favorites. I'm also going to talk about some British record sets specifically that you can actually find American ancestors in. And I don't know that a lot of people really research that way, but there are some real hidden gems for North America in some of our British collections. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of collections that are pretty significant for Findmypast, projects that we're particularly proud of that actually happen to be the favorites of some of our Findmypast ambassadors. I asked our Findmypast ambassador team, we have about 30 professionals that help spread the word about Findmypast. They're wonderful people and they're all experts in their areas. And I asked them what their favorite record set was. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of those as well. So Deborah says, yes, it is. Yes, indeed. So yeah, I must have hit it when I said 9 o'clock. So thank you very much. It's pretty late there, but I don't know about all of you guys, but I'm not sleeping consistently on the same schedule as I used to. So maybe 9 p.m. isn't that bad to watch a live stream on Facebook. All right, so let me tell you about a few of our collections that I think people in the U.S. should know about, and then I'm gonna talk about some Canadian records as well. But I'm gonna start with the U.S. First and foremost, what we've talked about the most over the last couple of weeks with some of these live sessions has been immigration records. And a variety of ways to look at passenger lists and where people originated. And I think that's one of the big questions, right? Is how do I figure out where my ancestor came from in the British Isles? So, and as I talk, keep your eyes on the thread, the comments, because I am going to be trying to share links as I talk about these record sets. So the first one I wanted to talk about is one of our immigration collections that's unique to Findmypast. You're not going to find it anywhere else. But you kind of are in a little bit the same time. So it's called British and Irish Roots. I'm going to share the link now, so that'll be available to you. British and Irish Roots is unique because it takes the concept of searching multiple record sets for your source of immigration and pulls it all into one bucket. So if you can imagine, 100 different buckets sitting on a floor, all of them with names inside, right? And little records. All of those records might have some kind of clue to origin. It might say this person was born in England, or it might be very specific. It might say they came exactly from Birmingham, England in, 1837. Whatever that record source is, we put all those buckets, we took all those little tiny buckets and made one big bucket, and we're letting you search it all at the same time. So that's the concept of British Irish Roots, is to make the search process of finding those particular records that might have some indication of origin easier, right? And more efficient. So what you do is you search British and Irish Roots, and it actually links you to another record set on Findmypast that then gives you the actual information in the record you're looking for. But every single record that you'll come up with in British and Irish Roots has some connection to place of origin. So you might see things like the federal census, the U.S. federal census, that says, they're from Ireland. You might see religious records. You might see passenger lists. You might see, one of our favorite examples is actually the California Great Register, which was very much census-like when they took it, but they asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions they asked is, where are you from? And in that record set, they get a little bit more detailed than maybe a federal census. So you might not think to look at the California Great Register as a place for clues as to where your ancestor actually originated, but they are there, right? So we took all of those different records and we dumped them into one pile and made it easier to search. Hopefully some of you have used British and Irish Roots, and if you have, we would encourage you to give us the feedback. We've heard from a variety of people kind of around genealogy, around family history, that they've enjoyed the record set and then it has made the search easier. So we're hoping that that's the case for a lot of people. It's been around for, I want to say about 18 months or so. We published it, but we would encourage you to use it. Try to use it, see what happens, see if you like it. It's kind of a new concept for Findmypast, but we do hope that it's useful. Cindy says Scottish and Irish roots, I know for sure. Some of the Scottish roots, but needs help with some of the Irish stuff. And yeah, Cindy, don't we all? Right? The Irish story is a difficult one to research. Thanks for that comment, Cindy. Absolutely. So even though it's entitled British and Irish Roots, it does have materials from all over the British Isles. So don't. And I think that's the case, actually. I think that's a good point to make, actually, with just about every record collection on any history website anywhere, is don't be thrown off by the title of a record set. It's just naming that because that's, the easiest or most convenient name. In some cases, it has to do with, search strategy and SEO and all these different things about running a website. But British and Irish really does cover the entirety of the British Isles. So look at collection no matter where your ancestors were from in the British Isles. All right, so that's one of the big ones I wanted to share, and that specifically helps or is designed to help with immigration questions. So if you are looking for anybody who kind of traveled in between the two countries, take a look at British and Irish Roots and let us know what you think. Now, there's a couple in there that I particularly like. I really enjoy, and don't know, I don't know about all you guys, but especially in North America, it's really exciting to me to find older records. So, and I even joke around, like because I live in Colorado and I grew up in the Western states. So 1850s pretty old out here, right? So when I go to New York or Pennsylvania and I see things from the 16 and 1700s, I get really excited. And then when I go over to the UK and I see things that are even older, I get really excited. So I think some of my colleagues at Findmypast would tell you the same thing, and maybe even tell you a silly story or two about the goofy American kind of getting all worked up and excited about stuff. But one of the things that one of the collections that I really love, and one of the things I love about Findmypast, actually, is our relationship with the National Archives in England and Kew. And the reason I like that relationship so much, and the reason I value that partnership so much, is because they have this incredible collection of colonial era records. So I have, I think at least two colonial era ancestors in the 1600s. The first ancestor that I know for sure is mine, came over in 1635. And there's a lot of research out there available to us for that period, right? There's a lot of colonial era research for the United States. And it's fantastic. But almost all of it that's available is in the form of transcripts, right? It's black and white pages typed out, written in a book. So when I see something like that, I get excited. That's great research and it's fun to do. But when I see actual records, it just hits me, right? It's absolutely, it's really powerful. So I'm saying all this to introduce you to one of those record sets. It's called the Registers of Licenses to Pass Beyond the Seas. I'm going to share the link in the chat. The collection runs from 1573 to 1677. 1573. I told you I get excited about old stuff, right? So my ancestor that came over in 1630 in this collection, and it's this beautiful manuscript page. It's handwritten. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's got his name, his wife's name, their kids, their servants that came with them. So seeing something in black and white and knowing, yeah, okay, there's the evidence. That's my ancestor. He came over on this day on this boat. But then seeing something that's handwritten like that in that beautiful script, it's just a completely different experience. So this is one of those collections that I like to tell people about, because if you have any interest in early American or early Canadian history at all, this is going to be one of those collections that you're just going to appreciate looking at, right? Like, this is the document that I actually downloaded and had printed on real photographic paper and in a really high res quality, framed and put on the wall, because it's just beautiful. The handwriting is gorgeous. The quality of the image is wonderful. I just think it's an outstanding record, and it comes from out of that partnership with the National Archives at Kew. And so oh gosh, wow, all sorts of technical difficulties today. My light just fell over on top of me. Okay. I told you this is casual. That was crazy. So even though it's this historical record and it's significant to my research, what hits me is that emotional reaction to seeing my ancestor in next, right? So for me, that's what genealogy is all about. Is it's a very emotive experience. It's a very what's the word? It just engages you, right? Oh yeah, Deborah made a comment. Deborah says there's certainly something spine tingling about opening a box or folder of those old records and knowing that there may not have been many folks who have handled it since it was written. Teen8Q is amazing. Yeah, Deborah, that's really well said. Spine tingling is kind of the word I was looking for, I think. Really, really incredible material. So even if you don't have ancestors from that period, that time frame, or if maybe they weren't English or Irish, take a look at the records anyway, because they're just gorgeous. If you appreciate historical records, which probably most of us do, then you'll appreciate some of these older collections. Cindy says, she put in another comment. Thanks, Cindy. The Scottish roots are from dad's side, Irish root from mom's side. Mm-hmm. And that's where I have trouble. Yeah, Irish is tough. Someday I'll have to tell you guys all my Irish story. And I'm from Colorado too. Oh, that's cool, Cindy. Thanks. That's great. So I'm in Northern Colorado. Cindy's out there in my state somewhere. So thanks for joining. Nice to have someone in Colorado at my side today. Thank you very much for being with us. That's fantastic. All right, so that's Registers of Licenses to Pass Beyond the Seas. Now, it's got an interesting title because it has an interesting backstory, right? In that period of time, you really did have to get permission to get on the boat and kind of leave the British Isles and leave the island, so to speak. And so a lot of the records are people crossing into Europe and several businessmen kind of going back and forth and making multiple trips, but you'll see plenty of people coming over to the Caribbean and then certainly into the New World, right? So incredible collection. Take a look at it if you haven't already. Oh, David, I'm sorry to hear that. David says searching along with my talking does not work. Site is too clogged. Well, that could be. Certainly, David, maybe try and close some tabs too. If you've got other tabs open, that might be affecting things as well. Typically don't have tracks on the site this late in the day, but definitely something to look at. If it continues, David, please let me know. I'm just going to say there's nothing really I can do about the site maintenance from my end, but if it continues, let me know and I'll put a comment in to the team over in the UK and see if anything's going on that's funny. So if anybody's trying to use the site right now, absolutely, please let me know. Okay, so let's kind of continue marching through our North American records. We have a ton of records that people are really useful, that people need to use, I think, to do thorough research, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the key messages of this session today, is not just that Findmypast is the place to research, although of course we'd love for you to think. The key here is that you have to try all of the sites, right? When I do research, I don't just look at one or two sites. I look at all of them, right? You have to use everything. Everybody has different materials. Everybody has a different collection. So it's important to explore all the major genealogy sites for the area of your interest. One of my objectives today is to expose you to the idea that we do have a fantastic North American collection alongside our British Isles collection. And we really would, appreciate a few minutes of your time, of course, to explore the collection and see what we've got. So let's talk about one of my colleagues' favorites. I asked some of my colleagues who do genealogy as well what their favorite collections were. Miko Cleland, who's one of our genealogists, and actually just did a fabulous session yesterday on Facebook about Scottish research. If you have Scottish research, make sure you check it out. He told me that one of his favorite collections is the Boston Pilot newspaper information wanted ads. I'm sharing the link in the chat, so take a look. It's a fan collection. You can find it in a couple other locations besides Findmypast, but it's a great record set. It runs from 1831 to 1920. And the backstory on this collection actually is that when people came over, and these are predominantly Irish individuals at this point in this collection, when they came over, and if they happened to come in through Boston, they settled in the Boston area, they would often run an ad, like a wanted ad, in the Boston Pilot newspaper. And they would say things like, seeking out Michael O'Brien, last seen departing Dublin on this day on this boat, headed for Boston. The objective was for him to settle somewheres near this area, or whatever they have to know about that immigrant's plans, or last seen in, this area of Massachusetts, or whatever information they had. And they would put out this ad hoping that someone would read it and be able to write back and say, oh, I know where Michael is. Yeah, let me, or maybe Michael would see it and seek them out, right? So the idea was that they were trying to find loved ones, family members, friends, neighbors, business partners, whatever, as that, especially during that massive wave of immigration. So the Boston Pilot newspaper information wanted ads is a fantastic set, in particular if you're looking for Irish research or Irish sources. And in most cases, many people used it as one of the ways to connect with each other. And in many cases, you will find that they put an ad in almost immediately upon arrival, especially in the later years of the collection. But often in the earlier years, they would wait some time before they would put that ad in. So the person might have been in Massachusetts for a couple of years before they put their ad in the paper. It's fantastic stories. Really, really wonderful opportunity for research. Really great way to connect the fan club, right? Friends, associates, neighbors, and figuring out who other siblings might have been, or aunts and uncles, or parents, or that kind of thing. Really digging out those relationships. Even from a little tiny snippet, you can pull a lot of information. So please make sure that if you're looking for Irish in the Boston area, that you're taking a look at the Boston Pilot newspaper ads. I haven't seen any questions come through, but I am trying to pay attention. So please don't let me miss it. Just scrolling through the feed just to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So that's fantastic. And I got a message from Amy, who used to work with us at Findmypast. And I just wanted to say hi to Amy. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being here. I appreciate it very much. And Amy is in Scotland, actually. So it's really, really lovely to have you. And thanks for sending that message, Amy. I appreciate it. Lori Ann says the version of social media with the Boston Pilot newspaper ads. Yeah, a little bit, kind of. Yeah. That's actually kind of a cute and funny way to think about that collection. But yeah, absolutely, it was trying to, before you could chase people around on the internet, you could ads for each other. Margaret asks, is it free to visit these sites? Well, Margaret, all these records are on one site, Findmypast, findmypast.com. So any of these links will take you to the Findmypast website. Most of our records are behind a subscription wall. It is a subscription-based site. There are some free options available for you. You can search the index. You can search the card catalog, if you will. But for the most part, the records are a paywall and are not free. And the reason for that is really just because it costs money to digitize records in the first place. And so in order to support our mission as a company, we do have a subscription. So no, it is not free to search most. Some of them are free, like for example, the Irish Catholic collection, Irish parish registers from the Catholic Church. Those are free. They're free forever. I have a handful of records like that. The 1947, for example, from the United States, that's free, but the vast majority of them are behind the paywall. Deborah says, I've found that death certificates of immigrants can be useful as they often give the name specific hometowns of the person's parents. Absolutely. Death certificates of the immigrant, right, of that first generation of immigration is crucial. Absolutely get those vital records. And what that means, of course, is that you have to really do thorough research here in the United States, because if they immigrated, I'm assuming they died somewhere in North America, right? I guess they could have died over there, but if they went back. But theoretically, they died here. So absolutely seek out all of those vital records, right? Birth, marriage, and death of the person you're looking for, and all of their children and their spouse or spouses. Make sure that you get all of those vital records. They're really, really important. Okay, so let's keep marching through the list here. So we've talked about the Boston Pilot newspaper ads. We've talked about British and Irish roots. We talked about the registers of licenses to pass beyond the seas. There's a couple of partnerships that we have here in North America that are really special because we're doing long-term projects with them. And one of those is Historical Society of Pennsylvania. They have one of the most incredible collections I've ever seen. If you've never had the chance to go research in Philadelphia, by all means, put it on your list, because their library is gorgeous, and it is they just have so many resources, and not just for Pennsylvania, but for the mid coast. That whole region is really outstanding. So it's a great partnership, because we've actually digitizing records with HSP for a couple of years now. One of the collections we have been working on is what's referred to as the greens and browns. And the reason they're called that is because all of these records were kind of compiled into these books, and the spines, the covers of the books, are green and brown, and they're just stacked on the shelves forever. And it's just this whole collection of green and brown books. But what is inside the books is incredible. It's this kind of hodgepodge of material, but it's transcriptions from different societies, it's newspaper clippings, it's copies of Bible records. I found a full copy of a manumission deed book from a particular county in Pennsylvania that's included in the greens and browns. So absolutely, the greens and browns collection is incredible. We've been digitizing that with them, and we've put most of it online now. I think it's almost all up and done. Let me run a link. So what we did is we took all the records and we organized them into kind of standard categories. So this is births, and I'm going to share a link to births and baptisms. I'm going to try and do this as I talk and not lose my train of thought. At HSP, so Historical Society of Pennsylvania. So we took all these little fragments of records and we compiled them into primary categories. So there's a birth, there's a marriage, there's a death, and then there's like land and property records, there's tax records, there's all sorts of deeds, different funeral home records, and just so many different categories. So that's just one example. One of the key things about finding this collection on the site is that if you go to our AZ directory, which is essentially our card catalog on Findmypast, and you start typing in Historical Society of Pennsylvania, all of the record sets will pop. That's probably the easiest way to see all the different options. Is go to the A to Z of record sets, and then type in the search box Historical Society of Pennsylvania, and they'll all show up for you. So again, I put births and baptisms in the chat just so you can see one example of it. But the records are just absolutely outstanding. So in one case, I actually found a record that is from someone who married in the 1800s, but the record is actually one piece of a much larger pedigree report that was written, way back when by a different researcher. And has been verified and gone through the loops of research comparison. But this person was actually able to put the pedigree together all the way back into the late 1500s. One of the first immigrant members was in Pennsylvania very, very early in the 1600s. So they have his father's birth. So one more generation beyond that colonial immigrant. And it just, kind of opens up your research door, because it's not necessarily that you just like, okay, this is all true, but it's a hint, a huge guide to help with your research. So then you go on the journey of either proving it or disproving it, because both are fun, and just seeing what happens, right? So it's a great example. Another collection from that partnership, the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, is actually a collection that they have recent. Actually, it's from two, and it's a collection of casualty cards. So the military, the army in particular, used to keep these casualty cards, and they would send a set every major newspaper in the area. And the newspapers in Pennsylvania kept theirs, and they donated them to the facility, to the archives, and kind of pulled them all together. So what you have is, in some cases, it's just an index card that says their name, their rank, and where they're stationed, and where they were doing training, or where they were sent. And I'm going to share the link in chat. And I should have added, that's the Pennsylvania World War II casualty cards. So in some cases you just have this index card. In other cases, in many cases, you have photographs. There are details on the back about, killed in action in this battle, or prisoner of war. And the details of this collection are absolutely incredible. So it really kind of varies depending on the person and what they included in the material. Sometimes there's newspaper clippings that the newspaper actually published about this person. It's, when they received a medal or some kind of commendation. So the materials are really, really incredible. So that's Historical Society of Pennsylvania, World War II casualty cards. It is specific to Pennsylvania. The rest of that collection from the archive really just is Pennsylvania individuals. And they do have some stories from other states, New Jersey, New York, I've seen, etc. But the vast majority of it is Pennsylvania. So if you have Pennsylvania ancestors, it's definitely well worth your time to check out what we're doing with the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. And this is a good reminder for me. Thank you, William. He just realized that he had to change the regions on his settings on Findmypast in his account, as he couldn't see the links on the thread from the UK side. And that's right. So if you are in the UK and you're watching this, I am sharing things from findmypast.com. And you are going to have to either change your settings or find these collections in the A to Z on your findmypast.co.uk. And I know the feeling. I know what it's like to do that. When a colleague of mine over in the UK sends me a link, says, hey, take a look at this, I always re-find it in the catalog under .com, because that's where my account is, and I don't want to change it. So yes, thank you, William, for that reminder. And I know, Lori Ann, I knew someone else had left. Lori Ann says, Historical Society of Pennsylvania, she loves it. It's a beautiful building and has many resources. It's truly beautiful. And the staff is incredible, right? It's just a really, really helpful team. All right, so really great organization, Historical Society of Pennsylvania. Cindy, is there any way I can get notice when you're on? Well, Cindy, that you can turn on notifications from the Find My Facebook page, and you can actually even turn on when we go live with something. But until further notice, at least, I will personally be on every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. And we post a schedule for the week every Monday. So watch that as well. Watch for that. And that will give you the topic for the week. And then other feeds that we're doing too, because I'm not the only one doing live feeds on the Facebook page right now. There's a bunch of us. That would be, that's the schedule for the North American content is 4 p.m. Eastern on every Wednesday until further notice. And it's me. You guys are stuck with I hope that's all right. Okay. Since I talked about HSP and that World War II casualty cards, I want to tell you about another World War II collection that's actually really special. And of course, we all probably know that VE Day is coming up. We're very excited at Find My Past to be sharing some new VE Day resources from the Allied forces. So watch for that. It's coming soon. But last year, about this time, we published a very special collection. It's not very big. I take a sip. It's actually just one manuscript book, but it is absolutely amazing. So we found out about this. I think a colleague actually found out about it. There was this little museum in the British countryside that had this book, and it is essentially a register from an American Red Cross station in North Devon. And of course, because it's an American Red Cross, it's full of U.S. servicemen's names, and it's organized by state. And so you turn to, Colorado or New Jersey or New York, and you see all of these guys' names as they signed into this Red Cross facility. And it was a club. It wasn't like a hospital. It was like a social facility. So in many cases, our research indicates that most of the units that were stationed in the area, and most of these men then, as a result, went on to D-Day and sort of helped the Allies front on the beaches. So there are a couple of people that I have found that I've randomly pick a name out of the book and I research, and they died during the attacks on me. So in some cases, this is the last known occurrence of their signature. It's just a very special collection, special manuscript. Share a link in the chat. U.S. servicemen in North Devon from 1943 to 1945. Of course, that's a year span. It's not all completely focused on D-Day, but an incredibly poignant manuscript. And you just can go page by page, and it says their name, usually gives a unit or rank of some kind, and then where they're from. And in most cases, it's a town and a city, or excuse me, a town and a state. It's just very touching. It's a very special book. We were absolutely honored to digitize it and to make it available. So in this case, it is actually an English record. So it's in our British collection, but it is about Americans. And it's specifically American servicemen that signed this register. So if you have anybody who served or was stationed in England during the course of World War II, take a look at this one, because they could very easily be in there. So a very, very special book. And that leads me into a lovely segue, right? I told you at the beginning we were going to talk about North American record sets, but we're also going to talk about record sets from overseas that you can find Americans in, and that's what I want to talk about next. So there's a collection in particular that that actually have a lot of information in them. So, for example, the British Prisoner of War collection, a British military collection, and it covers a pretty large time, including the American Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. Now, it's a British record set, so it is a record of prisoners of war that were held by the British Army. And you can find a few thousand American pews in that collection, specifically from the War of 1812. Now, it does technically include the Revolutionary War, but it doesn't have as many as the 18. So it just a really, really fantastic record set, in that if you are searching that time frame and you had someone who was fighting in the War of 1812, it's definitely a collection that you want to take a look at, just because it could fill in a time frame gap, right? There's absolutely an opportunity there to research a story. Maybe they're taken as a POW and then eventually released. But the collection from that perspective is pretty amazing and a lot of fun, actually, to research. I just saw... what record did I just mention, please? Okay, so I am specifically talking right now about the British Prisoner of War record set from the British Army. The one I was talking about before, Trish, was the U.S. serviceman in North Devon, which is a World War II related manuscript. Hope that answers your question, Trish. So the British Prisoner of War collection, really fantastic opportunity for those of us who have had ancestors in North America and fought against the British Army. A couple others that are along the same vein, right? Use these record collections to actually research your North American ancestors while they were here, right? Before they immigrated. The 1939 Register is actually a really good example of that. It's a entirely British and Wales collection, British and Welsh, but includes a number of women specifically who turned into war brides during World War II. So if you happen to have a war bride from that period in your family who came over to North America after the war, look at the 1939 Register and find out what they were doing and who they were living with, who their family was. Maybe they were on their own, they were employed. The stories again are there. The 1939 Register is a wonderful record set for more modern immigration stories. It is kind of the last of its period, because there was no 1941 census taken because of the war, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really key component for that time frame. So if you have wars or anybody who was in the British Isles immediately prior to World War II, or between World War I and World War II, you might want to take a look at that. William adds, the 1939 Register includes exact date of births, which is a good point, William, thank you. So it's easy to work out who is who from the many possible matches. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic record set. Now, it is also available on other sites, but on Findmypast, we have the most up-to-date version and the largest version of the record set. It was a living document for many, many years, and so there's some security concerns. You'll occasionally find somebody who's been redacted. There's a big black line through their name on the image. And those are for, private reasons. That person could theoretically still be alive. So keep in mind that the 1939 collection continually grows. We add to it on a pretty consistent basis. And then one more that I wanted to mention, just in general terms, if you happen to be researching in Canada, again, I'm going to refer to military collections. If you just search the UK military category on Findmypast, and you just put in, you're searching for any reference to Canada, you're actually going to find over 64,000 results of people who either fought in or were from Canada. And that's an incredible opportunity for research that people don't have. You can do the same thing with newspapers, right? Newspaper research, in my opinion, is one of the most exciting ways to research our ancestors. And I like for major historical events and understand the perspective of the community and the time when that thing happened. Like, for example, where were my ancestors when Abraham Lincoln was shot, and how were they reported to? How did they learn about it? How did they hear that story? Right? I had a couple of ancestors who fought in the Union, a couple of ancestors who fought in the Confederacy during the American Civil War. And so, what was it like in that moment when you learned that the president had been assassinated? Well, you can do the exact same thing from an international perspective, right? So the assassination of President Lincoln is covered in every major and minor newspaper kind of across the British Isles, and we have this incredible newspaper collection from the British Library that we're digitizing. So I do that a lot. I reference my newspaper research into international newspapers to get the idea of what the story was like in other places of the world. And I'll do the same vice versa, right? I've got this guy over in Birmingham, England, that I've been working on, my third great-grandfather, fourth or something like that. And I try to learn about what he might have been reading about, right? Like, so he immigrated to New York through Canada. And so what articles was he reading about New York, about Canada, about North America in Birmingham before he left, right? So trying to just kind of put yourself in that place, into that context. And for me, really is cool because I learn a lot about the time period. I learn about lingo, different slang terms. I learn about different ways to search. I'm able to kind of thinkatively and find different ways to search social history and context so that I can really get a better understanding of what records might have been created during their time frame, during their lifetime, so that I know what to look for. So I've kind of gone on a tangent, but there are a handful of collections on Findmypast that are British collections in nature, but they include a whole lot of information about North American residents and citizens. So take advantage of the collection and use it both ways, right? Use it internationally. Okay, so we have a couple of comments. Laura Lori says, I've seen married names added for many women. And Lori, you must be referring to the 1939 register. Absolutely correct. And, I could talk about any one of these sets. I'm trying to kind of skim through the list. So I'm glad you guys are adding the details. That's really helpful. So thank you for doing that. It is a living document. So, or was, right? So for a very long time, they would go in and say, oh, well, she got married. So now her name is, and occupations and change residencies and all sorts of wonderful little details. So you never know what you're going to find in the 1930s. So it's a great record set. Okay. So we have about 13 minutes left. We haven't gotten a lot of questions. So hopefully everybody is and plugging along here. There's a couple more record sets I want to that we mention. The first, well, let me do two at one time. We have developed a relationship with Ontario Genealogical Society up in Canada, and we're really excited about that partnership. They have a couple of collections on Findmypast now, but we're working on adding more. One of my favorites is actually the Ontario Oddfellows life insurance applications. Now, I really love social, and one of my areas of expertise is fraternal organizations. So when I heard that they had this collection, I just hit the roof. I was really excited. But these records are amazing. So let me share the link with you. Again, this is from the Ontario Genealogical Society, and these are applications for insurance, but they also have wonderful information. I'm going to throw this in the comments here really quick. So when you open up, kind of just it didn't save the right. I didn't copy and paste the right thing. When you open up the paperwork, when you open up the app, you see all sorts of hints to genealogical information. So there's usually a description of the person, like what they look like. There's usually a kind of a description of their health. So, because remember, they're applying for insurance, right? So they have to kind of show that they're healthy or whatever to be qualified for the insurance program. But in many cases, they also include history, right? It talks about your dad or your mom. Hang on. I'm trying to do too many things at one time. I'll have to fix it. Sorry. Yep. A British newspaper link instead of my my link. Here we go. We're going to get this together. We're going to get it right. Copy and paste. All right. So I'm on British newspapers anyway, so that's all right. Or Canadian newspapers. This is my Oddfellows application hitting the chat right now. So you have this one document that gives information, but it includes a family history and misses. So you have in almost everyone that I've seen, there's a father, mother's name. There's often siblings. Sometimes there's grandparents. So it's just a really, really incredible collection. It's relatively small, but it's still an incredibly useful collection. So I'm getting a comment that there's been a bit of a gremlin, nasty gremlins on Facebook. There's quite a few questions on the UK part of Facebook. Okay, there are more people watching than are telling. Okay, all right. Well, think that. Let me navigate over. Oh gosh, see if I can do that. Let me try and find the UK page. Thank you for stopping me to let me know about that. I really appreciate it. And I will get over the UK page and see if I can find all this in comments. Okay. So I'm going to scroll through a little bit and see if I can find. Okay, Trish asks, any idea about details of airmen based over here? Trish, I assume you're talking about in the UK. Details of airmen based in the UK. There are, I'm trying to think off the top of my head because I was really prepped for North American record sets today. There are records from, you know what, Trish, before I say something I don't, that I'm not quite sure of, let me poke around and I'll write out a response to you when we're done. How about that? Okay, Trish also says, oh, maybe this may answer that question. Trouble finding my great aunt's death details in either North America or Canada. Also can't find any of her children apart from one who was killed in World War II. Any ideas? Well, it really depends on when they died. I'm assuming because you referenced World War II, that they are more recent. I would definitely start with the 1940 census for the United States. And for Canada, it really is on where in Canada. So if you have any idea of a province, that would be really helpful. Let's see, I think she commented again, but I'll figure this out. There's a lot of Facebook pages to look at. So if you have any other details, Trish, on where in Canada that would hold, but for North America, definitely start with the 1940 census. If they're not there, depending on when they got here, or when they potentially immigrated, any of the children apart from one who was. So if the kids were fighting in World War II, you check the 1930 census as well, and then look to see if any of the states that they were in did state censuses in between. Now that late 1930, 1940 probably didn't, but it's worth checking. And then check the U.S. marriages collection on Findmypast. It's actually the largest marriage collection for the United States online. So check for your names in marriages and see if you get anything there. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get back to all. Just know, even the glitches today in the gremlins, I will go back through and answer all the questions as best to my ability after I'm done with the session. We just have a few minutes. There's a couple of major things I haven't talked about yet, so I want to get to those. The one I did want to mention, I put a link in for, was the Ontario newspapers. We just published in February 2 newspapers from Ontario. So that's an exciting addition to our newspaper collection. The catch to that is that they're actually in our British newspaper collection on the site. We wanted to get them out and published, and that meant that we kind of went with the that we had available. They're published on the British newspaper website as well, and that feeds an API, and so they were published in this collection as a result. Now, we asked our Findmypast ambassadors what favorite collections were for North America, and there were 2 strong winners of that discussion. Have an incredible set of Roman Catholic records from across the United States that we're really, really proud of. So that was winner number 1. The second collection that the ambassadors said were their favorites was Percy, the periodical source text, which, both of those collections are near and dear to my heart because I work on those all the time. Let's talk about Catholic first. We have parish records from Baltimore, and these are all archdioceses. So the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Archdiocese of New York, Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and Archdiocese of Cincinnati. We have a handful of other dioceses as well, including Chicago and some indexes from Missouri and forth. But those are the 4 kind of major locations that we have digitized and available on the site today. So New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati. Now the one that probably the most questions is New York. It is not New York State. The state of New York is divided into 5 or 6 different archdioceses. I want to say 5, some neighborhood. The New York Archdiocese covers the lower portion of the state, includes Manhattan. So if you are near with the boundaries of the archdiocese, it's well worth your time to just go to their website and look covers, because that's where the records come from. If you're looking for Rochester or Albany, those are not in this archdiocese because it's just not part of the, it's not part of the agreement. That's an exciting project, but make sure that you're not looking for just New York State in general, right? It's the archdiocese, and I'll share links to all of these collections in just a second. The New York Archdiocese project is all one that is still currently being digitized. Baltimore's records, we're finished digitizing. We've got to still get them indexed and published, but the digitization process is done, which is exciting. Doing a couple last records from their cemetery book now, but those should be done quickly. Philadelphia is done and fully online, and Cincinnati is done and fully online. Now, because of the lockdown that we're all in, scanning in New York has paused for the moment, but we will get that project back up and running. Of course, nobody is doing anything like that right now, just simply because it's not safe, right? Everybody to be safe. So I'm going to share those links in our Catholic collection, absolutely let me know. That is Maury Jobs is managing that project. And a pleasure. I mean, I think that I would be to digitize records from the Catholic Church. It's absolutely incredible. Records from the British Isles, from the Catholic Church. So if you have find in one of these Catholic collections over here, absolutely take a look back at the collection in England or Ireland and see if you can find them in their parish back at, in their origin as well. So the Catholic collection on Findmypast continues to grow. It's a really exciting project. The other collection that our ambassador said was really one of the favorites was Percy. Now, Percy is an acronym. It stands for the Periodical Source Index. So it's an index of materials published in genealogical societies from around the world. The index is actually created by the Allen County Public Library, and we partner with them to bring the index online and make those arts findable, right? So favorite examples from Percy is this article about the New York militia during World War XII. During the War of 1812, and it was written by someone in Washington State who published it in the Genealogical Society publication. So if you're researching an ancestor in New York during the War of 1812, you would not necessarily link to look at the Seattle Genealogical Society on the other side of the country for information about that particular ancestor. But there's the article anyway, right? It does exist. And so Percy was designed to help people find those types of stations, to find the articles of the area of interest. So that's what Percy is all about. It's not a name index, it's a keyword index. There's a lot to learn about Percy. It is an incredible resource. It has so much information in it. It's absolutely valuable. I've shared the link in chat. So keep that in mind. Take a look at that. It's a really, really wonderful record set and deserves a lot more attention. Even I sometimes forget to look at Percy loud, but it is one of those things you kind of have to look at all the time. Roseanne wants to say about the Archdiocese of Brooklyn in New York, and I'm surprised that I got this question. I get it a lot. The Diocese of Brooklyn has actually decided to try and do their records on their own in partnership with the local society. To the best of my knowledge, the project is still in progress, but I haven't heard anything new for quite a while. We have offered them a handful of times. They have decided to just kind of do their own thing, which is great, right? As long as the records get digitized and made available, that's fantastic. That's what we all want to hear. So as far as I know, they're just continuing to work on that project with the local organization, and hope that it's successful. So way to go, Brooklyn. We're all anxious for Brooklyn. I have ancestors from that area. I their records as well. Okay, so there's a few comments. It looks like there's still a couple people on the primary kind of UK Facebook page. So we're working on fix actually. So right now, Findmypast actually has two pages, one for our primary kind of A and one for the US and Canada. We're actually working on getting those two pages blended together. So bear with us in the meantime. Hopefully you guys all can still watch the video, and it will of course be available after we're done, even it live, right? It'll be available to you as soon as it processes and does its thing when we end the broadcast. Okay, so I cover everything because there's a lot to talk about, but I share a few additional links in the chat, some blog content specifically, especially because it's a little bit more of an actual record set. It's not, it's not based on surname at all locations. So you have to understand how to do it and understand how to use it. I mean, now the article is "What is Percy and why should you care?" It's a great place to start if you're new to me. And then I'll also include other blog posts in the chat. It is the top of the hour, so we're actually done, but I do want to tell you about what's happening next week. So next week, same time, same place, Wednesday afternoon, at 2 p.m. Mountain or 4 p.m. do this conversation again, but we're going to a different topic every week. And I'm really excited to tell you all that actually next week, in our third installment of Let's Discuss, we're bringing in a guest. So we're going to have Joshua Taylor, the president of the Genealogical and Biographical Society, is going to be next week, and he and I talk about New York religious records and how to push that back to the UK, because they're two very different types of records, and there's a lot of nuances to know about New York research. I'm really excited to have Joshua on the discussion with us next week. So hopefully you share your questions and your comments. Feel free to share those in advance, but it will be next day at 4 p.m. Eastern. Josh Taylor, the president of the New York Genealogical Biographical Society, which is also one of our significant longers in the United States that we're really excited about. All right, so that is next week, and that brings us to the conclusion of our hour. And a couple last comments. We over in the UK, they're saying we could see the video, but you couldn't. Comments. I tried at the end. Thank you for making me aware of it. Silly Facebook gremlins, your video has been very interesting. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. And we will get better, right? It is an experiment. So please do keep in mind, if you have suggestions, we're happy to hear those. William, actually, there's a way to do it as an international video. And yes, that's true, but we also want to make sure that our US friends and community are getting a little love as well. So, all right, so we tried to share it simultaneously today. Maybe it works, maybe not so well. But we're looking forward to many, many more of these discussions in the future. So just keep your eyes open and just know that Wednesday afternoon we'll be here. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to call it the end. But we'll see you next week with Josh Taylor from the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society. Great week, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of yourselves, okay?